This episode of Planted is brought to you by Pax Labs.
The Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Planted with Sarah Pine. I'm Sarah Pine, your host. Cannabis policy is evolving, access is expanding, and the science is getting stronger. And somehow, the stigma is still holding on. Dr. Pavel Kubů is a physician and one of the key figures shaping cannabis policy, access, and research in the Czech Republic and across Europe. His work doesn't just live in theory, it shows up in how patients actually access cannabis, how systems are designed, and how new innovations move from idea to application. In this conversation, we're unpacking what progress really looks like on the ground, why outdated narratives still influence modern policy, and where things may be headed next, including some unexpected breakthroughs, though far beyond cannabis as we know it. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. We are in Prague today, recording on location. Pavel, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you, Sara. Welcome in Prague. It's great to meet over here in my hometown. It's great also to get invitation in this podcast.
Oh, I've been so looking forward to our conversation. When I knew that we were heading over here, of course I had to get a hold of you because the first time that we spoke, we had such a wonderful conversation. And I was just really looking forward to seeing what's going on with your research and also what's going on in the Czech Republic. So a question that I wanted to open with was, look, you may not be familiar with your work. Well, how do you describe what you do at the intersection of medicine, cannabis, and innovation?
I'm focusing on research, development, and implementation of the so-called new treatment methods. So it covers various either medications, active pharmaceutical ingredients, with regards to medical cannabis, but Czech Republic also legalized psilocybin therapeutic use, where we are solving with colleagues similar issues as we were solving around getting cannabis into the medical practice and fulfilling the safety and the quality requirements. And I'm also involved in multiple projects developing and clinically testing new medical devices. We are working with visible light spectrums in different applications like lighting patches for wound treatment, which is actually helping in Ukraine speed up the process of fight wounds to be safely healed. We are also treating diabetic retinopathy with another application of visible light, and we are using blue light mask to help patients with seasonal mood disorder.
Oh, I know something about that. It's from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where it's the same latitude as Finland. So,
yeah. Then the asynchronicity between the outside day and light and your circadian rhythms can pop up faster.
Yeah, you have to have that light to keep your mood up when those winters can be really hard.
Yeah.
You've been involved in this space for a long time. What's your routine?
I'm chairing the Medical Cannabis Patient Association, which also leads the lobby. It was formed as a petition committee before the medical cannabis was legalized in Czech Republic. And once it was legalized, we turned it to official patient organization status, which means also that patients are properly represented in the board and other executive positions within the organizations. There are such requirements from European Union to be eligible as a patient organization. So we already met those checks. I'm also Chief Medical Officer of Plasma for People company, which is developing edestin, which is the hemp protein, the main hemp protein. So we've got patented procedure how to isolate it into the pharmaceutical purity, and we are working on market authorization, the edestin as lost blood plasma volume replacement. And we are also testing now its ability to not just help to replace the volume, but also help to replace the function of the main blood plasma protein, which is albumin, and its main function is to keep the oncotic pressure, which is basically one of the major indicators of homeostasis, the balance of our inner body.
That's so exciting. Now, where does Czech Republic stand today in terms of medical cannabis access? Right now, when we were speaking before we were recording, you were talking about their significant stigma.
Indeed. Compared to other countries in Europe, we are, let's say, for the patients on safe side, that the medical cannabis program is already legal here. And I'm saying that to point out that, in fact, medical cannabis access remains still the most disharmonized access across the European Union. Let me just remind that European Union is based on free movement of citizens, services, goods. And if you consider this, then medical cannabis is the most disharmonized commodity with regards to the free movement. And the great example can be difference between Czech and Slovak, because we are quite often getting questions into the cannabis patients organization from Slovak patients, which can't legally access medical cannabis, any cannabis forms. And you can easily, for what you get prescribed in Czech, and you got it even refunded by your healthcare insurance, you can get jailed at Slovakia still, and not just jailed. There's been just recently a case of a farmer who was just sharing cannabis creams with his close ones and of course friends and relatives, and he got not just jailed, but he got prosecuted his property. Yes. It's unbelievable how big differences could be in between two European Union member states. And just to remind, till the 93, we were one state, Czechoslovakia.
That's right. Yeah, that's crazy. And when you think about the fact that, you know, a cannabis topical is completely non-euphoric, so it's not even sharing a euphoric substance that you could still have, you know, your property at risk.
Yes, that's crazy. Oh, and and in fact, they did not convince him from any sales or any recreational production and so on. It was really just because of sharing creams and of course cultivating the cannabis to produce the creams at his farm.
And you know, it really shows that they're not aware of the fact that actually helps people not have to use far more harmful substances that just happen to be illegal.
And you are perfectly right. And we'll be getting back to this stigmatization from multiple point of views because it's not anymore with the Slovak Algesiologic Association. We've are already 5 years in close touch, and they are trying to change the legislation because they see from Czech how it helps, especially aging patients, elderly patients with typically chronic pain, untreatable chronic pain. And that they know very well it's much safer than the options they've got in a clinical practice now. So it's clearly showing it's not anymore an expert topic or professional topic, but the stigma in politics for some, to me, unclear reasons still persists. Despite it's already turning against the vulnerable part of populations, which are the aging seniors.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, it seems like when we're approaching this kind of policy, politicians tend to support it for two reasons. One, there's something to gain for them. Or two, like economist Bill Whitney will always say that policy isn't based on fact, it's very emotional. So perhaps if a politician had some experience with a family member getting relief that was profound, then they may. But it's never, they don't listen to the data as much as they should be. And quite honestly, that should be the loudest voice in the room.
Indeed. And it's also getting absurd with that increasing evidence how medical cannabis products accessibility are helping to solve otherwise, in fact, unmet medical needs of the aging population. Where I must say, seeing all these data, I'm always questioning, like, where do the politicians see the gains? Because typically in our aging countries, seniors are the strongest voters groups. And we see it in Czech, where the medical cannabis program has been set up very restrictive. Compared to the other European countries where medical cannabis is legal, especially Germany, where there are no limitations for the physicians in terms of specialization and in terms of indication. It's basically on their clinical decision and, of course, the patient needs and abilities to use this still a bit unstandardized medication, which especially with cannabis-naive patients creates an issue with compliance and typically for the long-term use. So in Czech Republic, there is positive list of specializations and indications. And there were also some extra administrative duties for the prescribing physicians, which if they did not comply to, it was they were getting into a risk of pretty high penalties to be issued, which you don't see. Let me just quickly finish. Which you don't see in any other medications, even from the biomedicine point of view, much more dangerous, like opioids or synthetic opioids. There are not such restrictions which are applied on medical cannabis.
That is it. It's surprising, but it's not, because we see the same thing in the United States, and it really shows that not everything illegal is bad, and not everything legal is harmless. And so when we look at Germany, they think at this moment in time, they seem to be beating the way on how the direction that we should be going with policy in many ways. But going back to the Czech Republic, what are you seeing? I know there's been ongoing discussion about adult use cannabis.
Still smoking joints? Okay, we need to talk. If you love cannabis but you're still lighting it, let's look at what's actually happening. When you burn flower, you're creating smoke, and that smoke contains harmful compounds like tar, soot, benzene, and formaldehyde. In fact, almost 200 different compounds have been detected in joint smoke. So how do we know this? PAX decided to study it. In controlled lab testing, they compared joint smoke to vapor from their devices, using the same flower under the same conditions, and measured 16 key harmful compounds. The result is pretty striking. Vaporization reduced those compounds by more than 95%, because when you heat cannabis instead of burning it, you change what you inhale. You still get cannabinoids and flavor, just without all the extra stuff that comes from smoke. This isn't about judgment, it's about information. If you want to learn more, go to pax.com/science. Pax is setting higher standards so you can smoke less smoke. And for Planted listeners, get 20% off at pax.com with code PLANTED20.
What do you think is going to happen with that?
Since 1st of January this year, it's legal to cultivate for your own use up to 3 flowers. And up to 5 flowers, you are still just in a penalty risk. So it's not a crime. You can possess up to 100 grams of your self-cultivated cannabis at home and 25 grams at street. And up to 200 grams at home and 50 grams at street, it's, again, still just the penalty risk. Above these limits, it's still a crime. And it's also important to say that we, as a medical cannabis patient associations, were also strongly supporting this legalization of home cultivation, because due to this super restrictive medical cannabis access, we got during the last decade, when it's also refunded over here, up to 90%, up to 30 grams per month per patient. So there became a huge gap in between the ability of the healthcare system to provide or to reflect the increasing society need and demand for this non-toxic medication, and the number of or the estimates of and typically senior citizens rose during the last 5 years from there were estimates around between 100 and 200,000 people who used cannabis in last year from these unofficial sources solely for a medical reason. And this number rose during the last 5, maybe 7 years from these 100 to 200 interval, because again, it's estimates, it's not sharp number, of course. It rose to 500 to 700,000 is the last official government estimate. And the medical cannabis program was able to serve 5,000 per year. So we got really 2-level gap in between the society need and the ability of this super restrictive access to provide.
And then when people are talking about the fact that they're getting relief, other people get curious about it and want to see if it works for themselves. So let's get into reverse the bias. You mentioned when we were getting ready to get together, you mentioned reverse the
reverse spin bias is, in fact, very new publication. I think it was published also something like 6-8 January this year for the first time. And it, in fact, extends what we already see for years in the peer-reviewed publications, and not just in biomedicine, also in other areas. It's called spin bias. That the authors are spinning for multiple reasons. It could be a mistake, wrong calculation, but it could be also some intentional, like you'll never get another grant if you don't prove your first hypothesis. So why not just to spin a bit something to stay on the safe track? And the reverse spin bias was in fact found out or explored in 2025 because of course the publication took time to be published. When the research team was evaluating multiple systemic reviews on the health risks of electronic cigarettes. And because they start using the big data analytics tools are getting more and more accessible, they are more and more smarter with the various AI supports and so on. So you can, of course, do much more analytical work than was possible just a few years ago. So the research team found out that majority of the systemic reviews on the e-cigarettes harms were in fact downgrading their own findings in the conclusion to stay within some political safe narratives. But that's not how the science works at all, or should not. And because they find it there, the team thought, okay, what could be another politically stigmatized area of biomedical research where we can prove whether the hypothesis and the pattern we see here at the electronic cigarettes could be also present. Of course, they pick up the medical cannabis and they evaluated systemic reviews on medical cannabis effects on chronic pain. And guess what? They confirm their hypothesis. So that's why they published there is this new faking of data, which will probably be present also in other politically problematic issues, but it's already proved on e-cigarettes and their health risks and medical cannabis and its effects on chronic pain. Well, at the same time, we at least know now what we are fighting with.
That's all right.
Indeed.
So are patients still hesitant to disclose their cannabis use to doctors?
Not in Czech Republic. Well, of course, in living systems, nothing is 100%. So, of course, there'll be still patients which will feel not safe. I must say we are sometimes in the patient association, in fact, solving, let's say, the other extreme. The patients are kind of too much exaggerating and pushing on physicians that they must to do. No, they don't. They have to evaluate. They could consider it. But if they don't see it fit, typically with some mental health comorbidities. We are solving these problems more and more often, that some patients are too pushy and they are so, of course, the physicians are refusing to
call as in for drug-seeking behavior.
Yes, that's good. That could be it. And then you see the patient pharmacology profile, and I can imagine even like total cannabis optimist to be adding into that cocktail the psychoactivity of cannabis.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I think there is I of course, you know that I fully support it being accessible, but it is not for everybody. And sometimes the people that it's not for, they don't realize that, because especially when we're looking at, neurological issues and things like that, it can either be very beneficial, or especially with like very young minds that are still developing at those critical times.
Yes, you are perfectly right. And as there's more and more evidence coming on various interactions, which we have always to consider. So there's also, for example, the anticoagulation treatments. There can be some interactions which will, in fact, diminish the effects or increase the risks of that, let's say, primary indication or more risky indications. Of course, the physicians has to evaluate how much for a given patient it makes sense to add this type of medication.
Yeah. And that can be disappointing for somebody who really
Indeed.
to cannabis
Indeed.
have access and find some good benefits. But, to weigh the risks, just like with anything. And I think it's always so important for us to have these balanced conversations, because if we don't, somebody else will have them for us. And as we see with, the stigma and bias, it does not often go the direction we like it to.
In fact, this over push from some patients is helping to keep the stigma within some groups of medical experts, because then it really looks like you're having withdrawal and you're pushing to get your drug covered by healthcare insurance. Indeed.
How does bias impact clinical outcomes or patient safety?
That's still to be probably thought through or explore. We just have now the new exploration that this is happening. I can speak about, or I can hypothesize multiple effects, but which ones are real? For sure, the one of the real effects is the slower adoption in the clinical practice because of, in fact, disinterpreted, downgraded results of these systemic reviews, which you can always hear when I'm also in board of medical society, and you can see it globally. And not to not speak generally, I'm just 2 weeks ago we received a request for support from Ukraine. Because there was widely circulated one of the systemic reviews on medical cannabis effects on PTSD, which is, of course, a huge topic there. And the systemic review is exactly kind of blurring, saying, it's not enough RCTs and it's not conclusive and it probably does not affect. Of course, I was not re-evaluating the data there, but we can easily hypothesize that there might be exactly the same issue, because, in fact, the reason why in Israel is one of the first countries having the medical cannabis program is because they start to use it at PTSD patients.
Are you looking for a lasting, meaningful way to connect with your audience and highlight your brand? Well, listen up, because Planted with Sara Payan is taking on new sponsors. Here's a powerful stat. 20% of listeners are more likely to support brands they hear about on a trusted podcast. And 60% actually look up that product after hearing about it. That's the power of podcasting. Planted with Sara Payan has a unique draw. With remarkable guests, we attract and engage audience that spans all sides of the cannabis spectrum. Picture your message reaching these listeners time and again. Podcast ads are evergreen, meaning your brand stays relevant as new audiences discover and binge past episodes. It's a long-term investment that keeps on giving. If you're looking for a targeted, passionate audience with lasting impact, the right listeners are here waiting to meet your brand. Visit plantedwithsara.com to get a copy of our sponsorship deck today.
And of course, you won't find big RCT studies, randomized clinical trials, placebo-controlled. But here we have to take in account also what the team around David Nutt already published years ago, that making the RCT as some gold standard or holy grail of clinical evidence. It's just showing that the given expert does not understand how the clinical evidence is being generated. If we apply this in the history of medicine, we get just very few methods and medications which are in fact confirming their effects within this RCT design. And it's not. And if we look back into the history of medicine, again, it's just kind of last 50, maybe 70 years becoming requirement, mostly pushed, of course, by growing pharma industry, which was working with single effective molecules and was able to meet the requirements. But getting back, for example, to this printed light medical devices, where we were also asked to prove the treatment effect by RCT, which is impossible because we can blind it. It's visible light. Everybody sees how it's lighting. So it's already creating barriers for further innovation. And if we take it back to medical cannabis, so there's in fact the whole area of science around how do we placeboize the cannabis natural complex, which includes terpenes. You can't just and they are in some indications they are important also for contributing into the entourage effect. So you can just take them out because then but if you keep them in, the smell is so specific. You can easily even from creams recognize which is active and which is not. So it's making the issue with placebization as such. And to just add yet one more already well-evident reason why this should not be applied, and not just on cannabis, but also the other natural healing complexes from other herbs. So there is, with medical cannabis or cannabis use, there's already so many sometimes even miraculous effect related based on some stories, patient casuistics, and so on. In other words, the popularity and the expectation of positive and sometimes even over positive results is so high in population that to design properly a randomized clinical trial with medical cannabis, you have to count with, in fact, twice higher placebo response in the non-active group. If you don't do that, which issue of a lot of the RCTs which stay like, and they are typically not saying medical cannabis is not working in that indication. They are saying in the results, we did not prove it on statistically significant level. We proved that it's efficient more than placebo, but it was efficient just 10, or just, it's not just, that's good efficiency proof, 10-15%. But if you put, let's say, average expectation on placebo control group response, which is usually 20-30%, you put it in your statistical model. And it calculates you how many patients you need to have in the active and placebo group. And then the positive effect in placebo group is about 50%, which is typically happening with medical cannabis trials. Then, of course, you have too low number of the patients to prove the statistical significance. And it's quite often then disinterpreted in the various systemic reviews, like medical cannabis is not efficient, but it's not true. It's just showing there was wrong calculation of the statistical modeling of the given study.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems like some of the systems that we have, this research really almost lean into bias in many ways. Like one of the things that I went to school for was the decolonization of research methodologies.
Yeah.
So if you're coming in with your own idea of how you're going to be interpreting it, chances are it's going to come very close to what you have.
Uh-huh. Indeed.
When you look at like now, some things that herbal envies in the past that we have said, oh well, we believe in science and we believe in a very like institutionalized approach, and now we're finding that things that we looked at as old folk remedies, once we get into the research, there's actually very substantial proof that there are reasons that people gravitate towards the solutions.
Yes, and you just remind me on yet another nice actual evidence how this push on having everything randomized, placebo-controlled, and then we can bring the evidence, was the actual training of the various AIs models. The reason why the previous models were so hallucinating in many of the health-related questions was on large scale also because the first models were just trained on the RCTs. Because again, the AI geniuses, of course, were not solving the issue whether this is the gold standard of biomedical knowledge or not, and then the AIs were not able to properly evaluate and answer on a typical but complex health issues in the reality, because these types of clinical studies, they are in fact just super selective environment. You've got inclusion criteria there, what means who will be included, what type of patients, but you've got also exclusion criteria. So you can exclude during the course of the study those which are showing some non-compliance. But of course, this is a way how you can manipulate either intentionally or unintentionally the outcome. And the reason why the models are improving is because they start to use for their training so-called real-world data.
Yeah, but because it's in the real world, things are way more complex. Human beings are way more complex. Even when we look at how, I used to tell people when I was teaching, we know how the majority of human beings respond to certain ratios and amounts of cannabis, but we are all walking hemisphere experiments. So I have seen people who have had negative reactions to something that's supposed to be completely non-euphoric, and I've had people who don't react to anything at all, and it really depends on our body chemistry, our neurodivergence, and all these things that come into play. So if we're going to be doing research to help human beings, we have to understand how incredibly nuanced it is. And I know that sometimes it's hard in science to not have these straight, right.
And here we are getting to a very interesting question or topic that considering all the technology development which is happening in the new millennium, then of course we have to reflect it in the either clinical practice or research and science. And yes, of course, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that was the best option to, in fact, make the modeling of the complex, of the reality complexity, the way that we could get some data. But with all the big data tools, analytics, which are quite often available even for free now, the narrative is changing. We can and we should. It's already Czech Medical Society is already training this on the continuing medical education on AI, how the AI, generative AI, how it's gonna be used. The narrative is changing because we've got already enough data which are proving that junior doctors are a bit more or are less safe in clinical practice if they are not supported by the latest generation of LLMs. The LLMs are already comparable to senior physicians, but already better than senior physicians in analyzing properly the complex patient cases. So we are getting back to the roots, which is the medical ethics. And the first rule says, do no harm. And we're already having increasing evidence that to continue with these tools, do no harm, means to use these tools in clinical practice. But once we start using them, we can, of course, really personalize the treatment. Because when there was just physician and paper and pen, they need to have some proper navigation to be able at least have a good chance to replicate some positive effects. But the how to say it, the society development has already shifted and moved so fast that we are now have to solve how fast and reasonably we will start using these clinical decision support tools, because we are already having evidence that physicians could have higher rates of mistakes if not supported by these tools. And also we've got this ultimate call for the so-called lege artist, so to use your best skills and knowledges. And we see that this becomes, in fact, part of the best skills and knowledges. And you can still hear some physicians arguing that, oh gosh, some engine will not be, or device will not be telling me how I should treat my patients best.
But they're already using tools that help them do their much better. I want to shift a little bit. So, rethinking distribution laws, and we're talking about like this changing world, and how, we talked about how research and even the way the doctors work is changing. But there's been discussion about over-the-counter cannabis. What is that?
It's in fact one of the tools or processes how to help bridge this gap I've already described. Now it's 15,000 patients or close to 15,000 patients in medical cannabis program. But when there will be updated this estimate of the patients which self-medicated during last year with cannabis product, we might also expect some increase, but let's stay on that 700,000 limit. So to bridge this two-level gap, because even if we remove all the still existing barriers for medical cannabis access.
This episode is brought to you by Fat Nugs Magazine, a global perspective of cannabis and stoner culture as a bridge to the rest of the world. Right now, you can join Fat Nugs Magazine, Beard Bros Farms, Freedom Grow, and Jailed for Weed in the upcoming Prisoners Edition and help spotlight current and past cannabis prisoners and their stories, because no one should be in jail for a plant. Find Fat Nugs Magazine's beautiful print copies at your local dispensary, fatnugsmag.com, and on socials. Cannabis culture welcomes us all.
We'll probably move within few years a level higher, but we still be a level below where the society demand already is. And as Czech Republic is one of the fastest aging societies globally, of course, we can expect there will be also some speed up of the society need or increase in society need. So the OTC cannabis is trying to react on that, proposing that up to 1% of THC, because in Czech Republic we already have the hemp law, you can have up to 1% of THC in hemp flowers, and you can process the hemp flowers too. So that should be accessible through pharmacies upon patient request, of course, with direct payment, not refunded. The refundation will still stay with the prescribed one, because, of course, the healthcare payers needs to get some objectivization of your demand. And then we are proposing there to create second category between 1 and it's proposed 7%, but we'll see what will be the higher limit of THC in it. Should be accessible on patient request, but the patient first has to contact his or her general practitioner, who, when excluding potential contraindications, or some negative interactions with the existing medication the patient is having, then we'll use one of the tools we have here in the digital healthcare already available. It's called e-voucher. It's typically now used for when you need, what is it in English? Crunches. Hope I'm saying it right. No. Crutches, yeah. Or these types of, or diapers for elderly, and so such types of, once you get it in the voucher, then you can access as you need it through pharmacy. And also the tool can be used for some control of the total volume dispensed to the patients to also prevent some diversion to the illicit markets. But you don't need to visit your physician each 3 months for another prescription. The voucher can stay open, of course, not unlimited, because we don't live unlimited, but for a pretty long time.
It's such that having a model like that will help encourage people who might be curious about using it for.
Definitely. That's also one of the ideas to get the safe and properly controlled products basically available to general public, because we are still facing the, of course, sometimes it's better to cultivate your own, but can be also tricky because you never know the pesticides, heavy metals in the there's good chance that yes, compared to purchasing various and you'll see it here in the city center of Prague, the various in fact touristic traps where of course Czech citizens sometimes are ending up to, where they are selling as collectibles, in fact hemp flowers, which are sprayed typically by some totally new synthetic cannabinoids where we do not have no information or data about either acute effects and risks, and also about chronic effects and risks. So
sure that people have better alternatives.
Yes, safe and properly controlled within the quality, I mean. Than to be in this shadow or illicit markets dependent on quite often very questionable quality sources.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most important things that we need to be having regulators and politicians understand, is that creating these programs isn't about creating more issues. It's actually about solving them. But, Ed, how you and I, we can sit down, Pavel.
Yes.
There's something that we really cover this episode, which is incredibly exciting, which is your work with Edestin science and the breakthrough potential with that. So let's talk about that.
Well, we already touched it a little, so let me open this one with the fact that Edestin is the common denominator of traditional regeneration diets in Eastern and Western medicine. It has been explored something like 1914, where the reasonable amount of Edestin was analyzed within either hemp seeds, which were typically used in the Western medicine as a regeneration diet. And they lower up to 10% in hemp seed. It could be over 40% to 45%, but around 10% of Edestin is also present in the protein part of rice or soya. And the macerates of one or the other or the combinations are were the typical treatment nutrition in Eastern medicine.
And those proteins, I remember the first time that we spoke when you were talking about this possibly being a solution for a shelf skin effect that could have on.
So we are here at Plasma for People. The abbreviation is P4P company, which is having the IP on isolating the edestin from hemp seeds, because there it's naturally most concentrated. So we could isolate it from the others too, but it will be less efficient. So we are working with hemp seeds. Fun fact, we have to be also proving it's THC free. Which is really funny, because we were saying, but come on, that's proteins. It's like a whole different molecular group. Really, it could not have any cannabinoids due to the isolation process. No, we have to be sending it to the certified labs to prove to regulators that there's no THC in it at all. Despite there's no chemical or physical option that it could be there still. But yes. Indeed. So we are isolating it in the pharmaceutical purity and developing it, and in fact working on market authorization. Of course, we are now in a preclinical stage in between in vitro and in vivo trials, and we are heading to clinical trials with humans. Where the edestin is designed to mix with aqua pro iniezione, the sterile water, and of course balance according to blood plasma pH and osmolarity, can be infused as a replacement of lost volume of circulating blood. And we are also in parallel testing not just that, let's say, volume replacement, but also a functional replacement of the main blood plasma protein albumin, function as a keeper of the oncotic pressure, which is the indicator, basically the main indicator of the already mentioned homeostasis, the inner balance of our body. And the oncotic pressure is in fact guiding how the various nutrients from the blood are filtered through the arterial walls to the tissue up to the cellular level, and on the other way back, filtrating all the waste products of metabolism or various toxic compounds and so on, which the body needs to clean out from the tissue and through the blood and urine out of or feces out of the body typically. As of right now, and because this is of course still a long way to go, and nothing is guaranteed. Yeah, that's what also we are telling to our investors, that there's no guarantee we will make it up to that level. We're getting warnings already from clinical colleagues that, okay, you might just be unlucky, and in man there will be some otherwise healthy individual, but with some undiagnosed allergy or whatever, and can react a strange way that it will not be possible to go further with the testing for humans. But at the same time, that will not diminish the medical value of that protein, because we've got already multiple food supplements. Just recently, with very new, a week-old registration, the isolated edestin as a novelty food here in Europe. So there are already multiple products on the market, even focusing on women's health. And we are also working on market authorization of some of these products as peroral medications.
That's exciting. That's incredibly exciting. And now the supplements, are they available for the public to purchase?
Yes. You can find them within the actual name Bloody Vital. There are two products. Bloody Vital, which contains also vitamin C and B. And we add on to the market based on the reaction typically from elderly people. We brought to the market also Bloody Vital Forte, which contains only the edestin, no vitamins, because typically seniors are using some multivitamins otherwise. And once they start using edestin, they had to recount their daily doses, and it makes it complicated. That's why we brought just the purified edestin, so you can basically eat it as much as you wish. Of course, the suggested intake is 2 pills in the morning, 2 pills in the evening for empty stomach. So because the edestin is in enterosolvent capsule, so the majority of the metabolism or breakdown of the pills start in the intestine, which give us the ability to get the original 3D structure of the protein up to the intestine, where the body typically in some critic situation is able to take even more complex structures from that molecule than just the amino acids. And speaking of amino acids, it's worth to say that the edestin is so unique. First of all, edestin comes from the Greek word edestos, what means easy to digest. That's how it's named. So it's easy to digest, very easy. Really, there's basically no food reactions or allergic reactions and so on. And also, edestin contains all the amino acids which the body needs, human body needs on the daily basis, all the 21, including all the 8 essential, which we need to take with food because body can produce them. And it's also containing these amino acids in not the same, but very similar concentration ratios as the human body. Yeah, we need some of the like alanine, cysteine. We need a lot of them. Some of the essentials we need just in some specific immunoglobulins. So we don't need too much of them on daily basis. But edestin has it, and it's so unique profile and so nicely matching the needs of human body in the protein nutrition spectrum. It's already for some time known in the expert area. And here in Czech, we've got even a successful clinical trial from 50s where our predecessors in biomedicine research and development were successfully treating child tuberculosis with an edestin-rich diet.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a supplement that is really some of the major building blocks that create balance in our bodies.
Yes, we decide to brought it also because of course it will take time to brought it to the market as the IV medications. But so that's why we decide to bring to the market fast the peroral forms, because to enable the public to benefit out of this little bit forgotten knowledge, how unique this hemp protein is to support human body regeneration in the protein spectrum.
So for our listeners, if they want to follow your work or if they're curious about Bloody Vital and they'd like to learn more about it or even order some for themselves,
go to our website, p4ptechnology.eu, or search for Bloody Vital, which in that already mentioned further product development focus on women health, it will be called Feline, or Feline is the right English pronunciation. Sorry for... also because we were getting mixed reaction from native English speakers on the Bloody Vital brand name. Indeed. And it's worth to say that we were aware when naming it, at the same time, it was so nicely combining, of course, for us non-English speakers, the fact or the goal of the company to develop it as a blood plasma replacement. So we wanted to keep some verbal connection to that ultimate goal, but based on the feedbacks we received meantime from multiple native English speakers, it will stay available as Bloody Vital, but the further developments are getting less, how to say it, less cursing names or indeed.
So much for joining me today, and it's so wonderful to meet you in real life. And I'm really looking forward to more conversations with you as this progresses. You're wonderful. Thank you for joining me, Gina.
Thanks for having me, and I can't wait to continue our talks.
And everyone, remember, if you like listening, please give us a review, share it with a friend. Let us know what your favorite episodes are. And if you'd like to stay in touch over social media, we are Planted with Sara Payan on Facebook and Planted with Sara on Instagram and Twitter. You can also go to our website, www.plantedwithsara.com, or listen to us on our parent network, Radio Misfits Network, where there are other great podcasts, like one of my favorites, the Winemakers Podcast. So check it out. You can listen to Planted wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, whether that's Pandora, Spotify, Amazon, Google, Apple, Stitcher. Tune in. We are there. So join us. And until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's a wild world out there. Be good to one another. Until next time, take care.